Hey guys, Nishwick here. So yesterday we had a Sony PlayStation showcase. It was basically showcasing the future of PlayStation 5. I have some thoughts that I want to share, and not so good thoughts about it, especially from a Nintendo fan's point of view. So without further ado, let's talk about this. I want to talk about two things in particular. First of all, the content, second of all, the pacing. And as you might see in the title or the thumbnail, I'm going to be comparing this a lot to Nintendo Directs, and you will soon see why. First of all, let's talk about the content. The last Sony showcase we had was in September 2021, and it had many heavy hitters. It had God of War, it had the first look at Spider-Man 2, Wolverine, Stellar Blade, Knights of the Old Republic. Really awesome announcements that made me very excited for the future of PlayStation 5, and I was very happy because I was a very early adopter of PS5, and I was very excited for a lot of these games coming out. This showcase was not necessarily geared to a lot of the titles that I am interested in. There's a lot of multiplayer games, and a lot of multiplayer games that didn't look very appealing to me. The first game from Haven Studios was not very appealing. The Helldivers game, it looks alright, but then again, I'm just personally me, I'm not very much into multiplayer games. But a lot of these multiplayer games, a lot of these live service games that Sony is pushing out, they didn't really have many gameplay snippets, gameplay showcases. I'm hearing a lot of people say they're excited for Marathon, but I didn't really understand what was going on in that trailer for Marathon at all. I didn't really understand what was happening in that Haven Games live service game trailer either. So that was one of the big turnoffs for me. There's a lot of games which were not interesting to me, but also didn't really show off enough gameplay. And this is very much a Sony related thing. Sony always does this. I always see them do this. They make a very flashy CG trailer with a nice big shiny title card, but there's no gameplay to back it up. So you have no idea what game this is. You have no idea what's going on in this game at all. And that is definitely the case with one of the games near the end. I think it was called Concord by Firewalk Studios, something like that, and it looked really Guardians of the Galaxy-esque to me. You see a lot of very cool colors, and you're in a spaceship, you see a cheeseburger, and then you see the title card, Concord. And I said this in my reaction, that I was much more confused after that trailer than I was before the trailer, and I can't even piece together what any of that meant. And what's funny is after the showcase, I talked to one of my friends, and he looked it up and he said, oh, Concord is like kind of like a procedurally generated game where you kind of piece together the story yourself. Well, that trailer did not indicate that at all. It did not show that at all, and it had no hints or evidence to that concept at all. So what's the point of showing a trailer like this? That's my question. But you might say, well, there are some really good games here. Oh, of course there was. There was Spider-Man. Spider-Man looks great. Looks like a really big step up from the first game. I'm very excited to play that. And of course, Metal Gear Solid 3 is back. I'm very excited for the Metal Gear Solid remake. And I'm very excited for Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, and 3 to be back on a modern system so many people can play these games after such a long time. And also, Phantom Blade Zero looks fantastic. It gives me some Elden Ring and Sekiro vibes, and a little bit of Ghost of Tsushima in there, so I'm very excited to play that. But those were kind of the only standouts for me, and that's a little sad, because I personally was looking forward to this showcase as something to be hyped about with my PlayStation 5. I was very excited to jump back into my PlayStation and say, I'm very excited for first-party games, for exclusives, things like Ghost of Tsushima and Spider-Man and God of War, like games in that caliber. Maybe not the same franchises, but in that caliber. Instead, I got live service multiplayer shooters, which all look very generic and similar, which don't personally interest me. And then I got some very vague, random games with CG trailers that didn't really indicate what the game was about. So that's another thing. And then sprinkled in there were some games that looked very fun. That's another thing. That leads me to the pacing of this presentation. This showcase was an hour long. I spent an hour, more than an hour, watching this and waiting for good announcements, waiting for things to be excited about, and they just weren't really coming, and I just kept waiting longer and longer, and then it was over, and then we got this random Wii U PlayStation hybrid, and I was very confused. I felt like I wasted a lot of time watching this presentation and didn't get much out of it. And that's why I go back to the Nintendo Directs. Nintendo Directs are all about pacing, and my thing about pacing is Nintendo Directs are at least 35 minutes. At the shorter end, they're about 35 minutes. At most, the longest Nintendo Direct, general Nintendo Direct, I'm not talking about the Nintendo Switch presentation in January, no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about general Nintendo Directs. The longest I've seen it go is about 45 to 50 minutes, which is still significantly shorter than the presentations that PlayStation and Xbox put out. And what the Nintendo Directs do is they're fast, they're snappy, they're fast-paced, and they keep you engaged with a wide variety of games. A wide variety of games that appeals to everyone. Of course, there are games that appeal to me in this presentation, but again, when it comes to pacing, one game must flow to the next and flow to the next and just have this kind of nice flow to it, you know? In this Sony presentation, there was a game where it had this really unique art style and this one giant wolf was protecting this girl, and then unfortunately you see that wolf bite the dust and the girl is really sad and she's crying next to the wolf, and then the wolf cub comes to comfort her and then it slowly fades to black and it's so sad. And then right after that is some cat pirate adventure game with cartoony art style, and the transition was so jarring. It didn't feel very good there. And you can say the same for Nintendo Directs. You can say going from Xenoblade Chronicles 3's DLC trailer all the way into Style Savvy or Samba de Amigo might have been jarring, but the way it's presented, the way it is paced, is a lot more smoother. And I think the big thing is that these Nintendo Directs are much shorter. They're much shorter and they're snappier and they have a much better flow than these Sony showcases or Xbox showcases that drag on for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and you're getting so tired and drained and bored. And I have talked to other people who enjoyed a lot of the announcements shown at these showcases, but to me, sitting through an hour of this showcase and only finding about 2 or 3 or 4 announcements that mean a lot to me it's kind of unfortunate. It's kind of sad that I spent so much time, and I could have been doing something else. I could have been playing Tears of the Kingdom, I could have been editing a video, I could have been doing some other work, instead of spending an hour wasting my time for a presentation which is over an hour long, which has very few stellar announcements. And again, I question, this was supposed to be Sony's big blowout showcase. After 2 years, we didn't hear anything. Where was Stellar Blade? Where is all the first-party games that are being developed by Sony Bend, London Studios, Guerrilla Games, Sucker Punch? I want to see these, and a lot of people were excited to see The Last of Us, Factions multiplayer. I had a pipe dream of having Bloodborne on PC. There are so many things that I really wanted to see here and I just didn't get to see. That's probably a personal thing, but also I have to bring it back to the Nintendo Directs, because one last thing before I close out. I made this tweet, and this is what I have said. I basically said, does the rest of the industry really look at Nintendo Directs and say, let's not do something like this? Because every single Sony and Microsoft show is so poorly paced and way too long. I sat through an hour of that show only to see like 3 or 4 things I'm really interested in. Directs are short and to the point with really good pacing, On top of that, they show a lot of gameplay and have a variety of good games. I don't know if I can stand through these hour-long presentations anymore, and when it comes to reactions, I'll stick to directs from now on. It's annoying to sit through an hour of a show just to see mostly CGI trailers with no gameplay, and contrast that with Nintendo Directs. There's so many gameplay showcases at these Nintendo Directs. Even your one last thing, it might be a CGI trailer, like Splatoon 3 had a little bit of a CGI trailer. It had some gameplay there. Tears of the Kingdom, very first trailer, was just CGI, cutscene, story. But every single trailer after that at every direct had some gameplay, had some substantial information that you could take from it. Even the September trailer, which had just the release date and the title, it had the release date and the title. And it had some other stuff in the trailer that we could dissect as well. And you might say, Metroid Prime 4. Well, yeah, Metroid Prime 4 is the one exception. Metroid Prime 4, all we know is the logo and the color scheme might be blue. But that's the exception. Why do companies really go for this kind of presentation style? Why don't they make it snappier, faster, more engaging, more variety, more gameplay like a Nintendo Direct, and keep it a little shorter? Keep it a little shorter, take out all the fat, cut off the fluff. That would be the best and most hype and most exciting showcase for me. And like I said in my tweet, I don't know if I'm gonna react to these much anymore because, I mean, the Sony one was kind of boring to me. I think I'm just gonna stick to Nintendo Directs from now on. And even with the Xbox showcase, even if Persona 3 is there, I'm just gonna stick to Nintendo Directs and maybe just film my reactions to some of the trailers in these other showcases after the showcase is over. Well, sorry for this kind of negative downer of a video. I kind of want to know what you guys think. I'm not much of a Sony fan compared to Nintendo because Nintendo is my bread and butter. Sony, I enjoy. I like some of their first-party games. I like some of their third-party games that they have on PS5, but Nintendo is where my heart is when it comes to games. So I'm most passionate about all that stuff. But if you enjoyed this video, give it a like. If you agree with me or disagree with me, let me know in the comments below. Subscribe for more content like this. This is Nishquick signing off. Have a great day. Go play some great games today. Just continue playing Tears of the Kingdom. I'm sure you're having a good time with it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.